if there was a team that was going to have momentum heading into the postseason, you wouldn't think it would be the one that blew the division lead in the last 6 weeks. And yet, in baseball, they say momentum is next day's pitcher. Well, the Texas Rangers held the Tampa Bay Rays to just 6 hits, nary a run to be found in a 4-0 win in Game 1. Bryce Patrick from Locked On Rangers joins me now. And Bryce, this was, I wouldn't say a surprising performance by any means. We saw this Rangers team be really good for a long time, but what clicked for them in this one?
Well, it was more honestly about what didn't click for the Rays as opposed to what did for the Rangers. The defense, I mean, in baseball, defense, usually the edge is negligible. But in this one, 4 errors by the Rays. The Rangers were forcing them into these errors at this point. There are a few more defensive plays that could have been qualified as errors, but just weren't. The Rangers were aggressive on the base pass. They forced these defensive miscues, and the Rangers made great defensive plays left, right, and center. I mean, they got a great performance out of Jordan Montgomery, a guy who they traded for at the deadline. And like you said, this team did not have momentum. They lost the division, not just in the last 6 weeks, but on the very last day of the season. So instead of flying from Seattle to Texas, they fly all the way across the country to Tampa Bay, but they did not look like a team without momentum. They came in, they took care of business, in the bullpen, which has been historically horrible, held for a 4-run lead for 2 innings.
Yeah, to your point, that on those 4 runs, just 2 of them officially RBI because of some of the defensive miscues for the Rays, which leads to the question, is this a sustainable way to win for this team? Or is at least this performance by Texas something that is replicatable? Tampa probably not going to play this poorly defensively the rest of the series, but they still didn't score any runs.
They didn't. And the Tampa Bay Rays had the second best offense in the American League to the Texas Rangers all season long. And, you know, the thing is,
we thought these were going to be 8-6 games.
Yeah, we thought so. But I mean, a lot of the Rays hitters are very, very banged up or just coming off of the injured list and just aren't quite fully healthy. And no, this type of performance, winning on 4 errors by the other team, isn't replicable, but like, this team can still score runs. That's the thing this team has done incredibly well all year long is, you know, sometimes they'll win by being terrible with runners in scoring position and having like 5 solo shots. And sometimes they'll win by hitting really well with runners in scoring position. And sometimes they'll win by having a really great starting pitching performance and taking advantage of miscues. This team is incredible. It's the best walking team in the American League. They will force pitchers to stay in the zone. And if pitchers get off the rails, the Rangers aren't going to hit themselves out of it. And for a lot of the night, that's kind of what the Rays did. So the Rangers might not get 4 errors from the Rays, but they can still beat this team, especially if Nathan Eovaldi on the hill is anywhere near as good as Jordan Montgomery was tonight.
Well, I think that's going to be the question, right? Can Texas and this pitching staff keep this Tampa Bay offense under wraps? I thought it was interesting that if you look at the bullpen, which you mentioned had been a pretty big problem. They had, of their 7 batters that they faced, 6 saw first pitch strikes. You get ahead in the count and you're able to stay aggressive with these hitters. Can this pitching hold in Texas?
I think so. Nathan Eovaldi was one of the best pitchers, if not the best pitcher in the American League for the first 3 months of the season. He had an injury and he didn't come back until I believe it was September. He had like 3 or 4 starts when he came off of the injured list. He just didn't look like himself at all. In the last start, it may not look like it by the numbers, but his fastball velocity, the rest of his velocity was there, which was not something I thought was going to come back this year. I thought he was just going to be a guy throwing a whole lot slower, not going to be able to get strikeouts, not going to be nearly the same dominant version of himself. And even though the Vila was back, he was still lit up by Seattle because that's the way things were going for the Rangers at that point. But with this Rays offense on the ropes, I wouldn't be surprised if a guy who has a long history of coming up big in big games comes out tomorrow and pitches an absolute gem. He's done in the biggest spots for them all year long, and it would be very poetic for him to come in and send them to the second round.